nature of the universe itself. He finds himself open to the possibility of a higher power. On June 11th of 1917, as Group 935 experiments with the element 115, they successfully create localized energy fields, which appear to function as portals, noting that objects can pass through them. Maxis speculates that the rifts may have opened gateways across space and time. The rifts allow Samantha to reach out to Maxis through Garth. She begs for his help and ultimately reveals that she is his daughter. On June 15th of 1917, an ancient box with the power to manifest weapons from different eras arrives through a portal. Maxis fears that element 115 is disrupting the space-time continuum. On July 1st of 1917, following the installation of element 115 power generators, reports surfaced regarding ancient figures emerging from the dig site, corresponding with the mysterious death of a number of Group 935 soldiers. The ancient figures are undead knights from the Great War. On August 3rd of 1917, Nikolai Belinsky is sent into exile. Then on September 10th of 1917, using element 115, Group 935 constructs Freya, Odin, and Thor, giant robots who they believe will secure victory for the Central Powers. On September 22nd of 1917, Richthofen notes that, in spite of Group 935's progress at the dig site, he's troubled by Maxis' growing obsession with Pablo's diary. On October 6th of 1917, Takeo Masaki is dispatched to France by the Emperor to gather intel on Group 935's weapon technology. November 19th, 1917. Following reports of prototype armed weaponry, strange lights in the sky, a mysterious plague, and even giant metal men, Tank Dempsey is deployed in northern France to assess the extent of Group 935's capabilities. December 10th, 1917. Already exiled in Europe, Nikolai receives new orders from the Imperial Russian Army to investigate the enemy war machine. Still loyal to the motherland, he willingly obliges. On February 23rd of 1918, Nikolai writes of the ongoing civil war in his homeland. He does not expect peace to last long, but he is enjoying his time in France. On March 2nd of 1918, learning that the Emperor wishes to meet him to discuss a matter of great importance to our nation, Takeo writes that he feels a growing sense of dread in the wake of his recent dark, twisted dreams. On April 14th of 1918, despite ongoing battles, Dempsey fares well in northern France. In a personal letter, he reveals that both the Japanese and Russian armies have also sent spies to investigate the activities of Group 935. On May 1st of 1918, Maxis is obsessed with the voice of Samantha, who now speaks to him constantly. He believes her to be the key to everything. On May 12th of 1918, believing that his mentor has been affected by element 115 like the others at the dig site, Richthofen reports Maxis' erratic behavior to Group 935's senior staff. May 13th, 1918, Richthofen learns from Pablo's journal that the northern France dig site may be the single largest deposit of element 115 on Earth. He believes this explains why it has affected so many at the site. On May 14th of 1918, now completely consumed by Samantha's voice, Maxis swears that he will no longer serve Group 935's mission. June 4th, 1918. The events of Origins. Element 115 awakens the undead knights from the Great War and quickly consumes the camp. Maxis is rendered catatonic by the element. Richthofen removes his brain before he turns.
Why don't someone go turn the power on?
Nikolai and Takeo unite with Richthofen on the battlefield and help free Samantha from her imprisonment in Agartha. Primus has been reunited. Samantha sends Primus to their next destination. Maxis' brain arrives in Agartha, and Dr. Monty decides to step in. Monty brings Maxis' brain to the house and wipes Maxis, corrupted by the dark ether, from existence. The events of Mob of the Dead. July 18th, 1922. Salvatore, or Sal DeLuca, opens gambling houses across Chicago. This marks the beginning of the DeLuca crime family. February 17th, 1923. Billy Handsome joins the DeLuca crime family as a hitman. Sal will come to look at Billy as the son he never had. September 18th, 1923. An expert in gambling and rigging sporting events, Michael Finn O'Leary begins working for Sal. March 23rd, 1924. Finn marries Angelina Baus, aspiring starlet with delusions of grandeur. March 1st, 1929. Sal writes of his frustration with Chicago's finest after many years of successful bribes with the city. It becomes clear that is no longer an option. May 11th, 1930. Sal begins to work with Albert Al Arlington, an associate in Los Angeles known for being a master schemer and bank robber. October 14th, 1930. Finn informs his lawyer that he will not accept divorce from Angela, saying she can leave this marriage the day she leaves this earth. October 11th,
Who's afraid of police? Niggas in the street, no justice, no peace. The law, the job, and do time. Oh my God. Jamaican. Nope. Who's afraid of the police? Who's afraid of the police? Niggas run the streets, no justice, no peace. Fuck the law, rather job and do time, don't fuck the fight. I guess. Must 2 9 obey, obey. Where's all the makers at? Girls ain't got no mic. Get the fuck out of here. You ain't got no mic. Oh shit.
(1931). After an LA heist for Sal goes wrong, Al wakes up in the hospital. October 28th, 1931. While in the hospital, Al submits Icarus from Mars for publication as a comic strip. It is his 3rd attempt. It is denied again. November 11th, 1931. Angry and frustrated with his collapsing empire, Sal kills a prostitute. No longer willing to turn a blind eye, Chicago PD arrests him. December 1st, 1931. In an operation against the DeLuca crime family, Billy is arrested for multiple homicides. December 19th, 1931. In an operation against the DeLuca crime family, Finn is arrested by Chicago PD when his wife offers evidence against him. On January 19th of 1932, Al is arrested for his role in the LA heist. Then on May 14th of 1932, Sal is found guilty of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. On May 16th, 1932, Billy is found guilty with 116 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. May 30th, 1932, Finn is found guilty of 16 counts of gambling fraud, and he will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. On June 13th of 1932, Sal and Billy arrive at Alcatraz Island. Then, on June 30th of 1932, Finn arrives at Alcatraz Island. On July 1st of 1932, Al is found guilty of grand larceny, grand theft auto, arson, conspiracy and battery, and he will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. Then on August 3rd of 1932, Al arrives at Alcatraz Island. On January 1st of 1933, Stanley Ferguson begins working at Alcatraz Island. Then on April 1st of 1933, Al convinces Sal, Finn, and Billy that they can build a plane and escape Alcatraz. On December 2nd of 1933, realizing the plane will never be completed and embittered with rage, Sal, Finn, and Billy plot to get revenge on Al. Then on December 31st of 1933, Finn, Sal, and Billy lure Al to the roof and kill him. On January 11th of 1934, stepping through a rift, Richtofen secures the blood samples of Sal and Finn. Then on January 19th of 1934, found guilty of Al's murder, Sal, Finn, and Billy are executed by electric chair. The events of Mob of the Dead. Sal, Finn, Billy, and Al battle waves of undead as they find themselves trapped in a seemingly endless cycle. On April 16th of 1940, Richtofen arrives in Dimension 63, where he contacted members of the Illuminati and enlists their help to build a laboratory facility beneath Alcatraz. On April 18th of 1940, Richtofen meets with Stanley Ferguson and convinces him to assist with the Illuminati's construction of the Alcatraz laboratory. On July 3rd, 1941, Stanley Ferguson reports that the laboratory has been completed and that the subjects will be placed in the stasis chambers upon arrival. Then on July 4th of 1941, Richtofen returns to the lab under Alcatraz, where we meet Victus, arriving from the empty Earth with the Chronorium. Upon reading the Chronorium, Richtofen discovers numerous timelines documenting their fates and learns about the blood vials. He would later write on the page, "I know what I must do, Edward Richtofen, 4741. Richtofen enters a rift to acquire the blood of Sal, and Finn, after delivering the blood to his younger self and recovering the blood vials belonging to Victus, he returns. Victus is then placed on ice to be kept safe until they're needed next. On July 4th of 1941, Primus arrives to collect the Victus blood samples from Richtofen following Primus's departure. Following Primus's departure, Richtofen learns the location of the summoning key and travels to his next destination. On October 1st of 1942, Stanley Ferguson leaves employment at Alcatraz. Then on October 21st of 1943, posing as Mr. Rapp, the Shadow Man hires the reporter to recover artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia. On December 14th of 1943, the reporter recovers the artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia. Among them is the summoning key. Then on December 25th of 1943, as per Mr. Rapp's request, the reporter speaks to Stanley Ferguson, a retired guard from Alcatraz. Stanley gives a detailed account of the deaths of Billy Handsome, Finn O'Leary, and Sal DeLuca. On December 31st of 1943, at Mr. Rapp's request, the reporter arrives in Morgue City to take in the sights, sounds, and smells. Then on January 15th of 1943, a meteor shower rains over Morgue City. On January 30th of 1944, the reporter notes strange mold now growing all over the city. He also notes people are getting sick and acting delirious. On February 13th of 1944, a fruit vendor tells the reporter about the ancient order of the Keepers and how they're the only ones holding back the forces of the apocalypse. He talks of the people hearing chanting from beneath the city. Then on March 30th, 1944, the reporter sends Mr. Rapp a telegram providing details and contact information for Nero, Jessica Rose, Floyd Campbell, and Jackie Vincent. On April 5th of 1944, aware of the Shadow Man's actions, Monty writes to the reporter warning him to not give the summoning key to anyone. Then on April 10th of 1944, Jessica Rose learns a photographer is in possession of compromising pictures of her. On April 20th of 1944, pretending to be a company executive, the Shadow Man tells Nero's lawyer that Nero's wife has taken out substantial loans in his name. He also states that Nero only has 15 days to settle them before the company seeks reparation, which would mean he now has to face multiple debts due to his wife's spending habits. So Nero decides to kill his wife and get life insurance to pay off the debt. Masquerading as an internal affairs officer, the Shadow Man tried to convince Jackie Vincent's partner to admit that Jack plots to kill the snitch who could provide evidence against him. On April 20th of 1944, the Shadow Man poses as a film director interested in hiring Jessica for a leading role. He tells her producer the part is hers. Afraid that the photographer could jeopardize her chance at stardom, she asks him to meet her. so that they can sort stuff out. On April 20th of 1944, posing as a journalist, the Shadow Man suggests Floyd Campbell is a journeyman fighter to Floyd's promoter. Wanting to guarantee his shot at the title, Floyd decides to wear brass knuckles under his gloves for his fight with Tony King. On April 21st of 1944, Nero misses a call from his lawyer, informing him the documents were forged and there is nothing to worry about. Jack misses a call from his partner that would have informed him that he has it back with internal affairs and has nothing to worry about. Floyd misses a call from his promoter that the fight was a success and that he has a shot at the title. On April 21st of 1944, Jessica misses a call from her producer and he says he didn't have a good feeling about the director and it didn't work out. However, he scored her a lead in a musical he and his partner are financing. On April 21st of 1944, Jessica kills the photographer and secures the incriminating photographs. Jack kills the snitch who could turn him over to the internal affairs. Floyd kills Tony the King in the boxing match and cashes in on his winnings. Nero kills his wife in a work accident, cashing in her life insurance policy to square away the debts. And then on April 21st of 1944, Richtofen arrives in Morgue City to secure the summoning key. On April 22nd of 1944, Richtofen learns the reporter has the summoning key and confronts him. The reporter waves Monty's letter at Richtofen and orders him to stay away before attacking him. Richtofen kills the reporter in self-defense. April 25th, 1944, the events of Shadows of Evil. Nero, Jack, Floyd, and Jessica are knocked unconscious at the Blake Lake Gillespie Club. They wake up in a twisted version of Morgue City, shifted slightly from reality. Told they can atone for their sins by the Shadow Man, all four are tricked into performing rituals. Jessica sacrifices her producer, Jack sacrifices his partner, Floyd sacrifices his promoter, and Nero sacrifices his lawyer. Completing the required rituals, the Apothecans are given access to Dimension 63. Realizing they've been duped, the four work with the Keepers to defeat the Shadow Man. They trap him in the summoning key, but before they can hand it over to the Keepers, Primus Richtofen arrives and steals the key. Richtofen travels to Dimension 2210 to secure an innocent Richtofen soul. He delivers the soul to the house. From within the summoning key, the Shadow Man states, "I'll be seeing you." Then on April 26th of 1944, the Apothecans destroy Dimension 63. Chapter 3, Agartha. The summoning key. The Keepers crafted the summoning key, a device that allows them to manipulate the ether. Holding power to alter reality itself, they used it to create the first transformers. The Keepers master the ability to travel between dimensions, the Dark Ether. Some Keepers begin to experiment with the Dark Ether, which corrupts and corrodes their souls. Among them is the Shadow Man. The Ether Pyramid. The corrupted Keepers create the Ether Pyramid, a device capable of absolute power. Schism forms between them and the Keepers, untainted by the Dark Ether. The war of Agartha begins. War breaks out between the corrupted and uncorrupted Keepers. The war of Agartha ends. Facing defeat, the corrupted Keepers hide the Ether Pyramid on the moon within one of the newly discovered dimensions. After banishing the corrupted Keepers to the Dark Ether beneath creation, the remaining Keepers take on the mantle of Guardians. Trapped in the Dark Ether, the corrupted Keepers contort and evolve over eons, ultimately becoming the Apothecans. They desire above all else to return to Agartha. The first arrival. With Dr. Monty's help, the Maxis' drone arrives at the house in Agartha. Despite the absence of his soul, Monty recreates a physical manifestation of his Dimension 63 form. The arrival of Samantha. Monty brings Samantha to the house, reuniting her with the Dimension 63 incarnation of the Father, Samantha's corruption. Knowing that Samantha is corrupted by the Dark Ether, Monty takes her away from Maxis and the house, the isolation of Maxis. Alone in the house and missing his daughter, Maxis worries if Richtofen will have the courage to fulfill the vow he made all those years ago, the rediscovery of the empty Earth. Having observed Monty for some time, Maxis uses the teleporter in the basement of the house to study and explore other dimensions. Among them is the empty Earth, where an alternate Maxis had constructed Zero Base, a facility that houses artifacts and replicas collected from a multitude of different timelines. However, his attempts to manipulate the empty Earth be a reality too fragile to be sustained. The restoration of innocence. Monty returns Samantha to Maxis, her innocence restored. Monty's plan. Monty explains to Maxis that the paradox wrought by a multiverse must be resolved. A new reality can be created, one free of the apothecans, but only if they enlist the aid of souls who had lived through and survived.
Where was that mainframe again?
The Chronorium secured. Among the artifacts that Maxis collected in Zero Base is an ancient book known as the Chronorium, a complete chronicle of the entire history and future of all reality. Protected by various countermeasurements, the facility can only be accessed by those possessing a soul. Richtofen's journey begins. Maxis tells Richtofen the plan to secure the Chronorium and locate the summoning key. Hearing the echoes of his other selves, Richtofen discovers his connection with Samuel Stuhlinger and decides to use Victus to acquire the Chronorium. The manipulation of Stuhlinger. Having overseen the construction of laboratory beneath Alcatraz, Richtofen returns to the house where he begins to communicate with Stuhlinger. Together, they persuade Victus to travel to a variety of locations in order to recover the Chronorium. The Chronorium retreat. Upon arriving at Zero Base, Victus provides blood samples that allow him to access the empty Earth and recover the Chronorium, the blood acquired. Richtofen collects the Victus blood sample from undead Richtofen. The arrival of Edward. Richtofen collects Eddie's innocent soul from Dimension 2210, and Monty gives him a physical form in the house. Samantha meets Edward. Eddie and Samantha meet each other for the first time. Samantha writes in her diary that Edward doesn't like to share toys, the happiness of the children. Monty brings Eddie and Samantha more toys. The fragility of memory. Maxis notes that the teleportation and travel between dimensions could have a profound impact on the mind. He fears that the confusion caused by the collection of memories past, present, and future could lead to the collapse of reality itself. The arrival of the souls. The souls arrive. Maxis tells Samantha and Eddie to put the toys away and to make sure the windows are locked before they come down to the basement. The arrival of Primus. Now soulless, Primus brings the summoning key to the house, where Maxis unwittingly releases the Shadow Man, who in turn frees the apothecans from the Dark Ether. Unaware that they would be wiped from existence once they've served their purpose, Primus battles alongside Monty in his final battle against the Shadow Man, the events of Revelations. With the Shadow Man and the apothecans vanquished, Monty discovers that Primus has consumed the blood souls from dimensions that no longer exist. The paradox must be resolved. Chapter 4. Fractures. Deceptio Fracture. October 13th, 1945. The events of the Giant. As a zombie outbreak occurs, Primus, Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai confront Ultimus Richtofen moments after he teleports Maxis and Samantha as they try to reason with him to wake their counterparts. Primus Richtofen arrives through the teleporter and kills his Ultimus self, triggering fractures across space and time as Primus fights the undead. Group 935 secure the Dempsey subject and transport him to Dreisendracht. Primus pursues them in a German Giant. October 29th, 1945. Dr. Groff takes control of Group 935 in Richtofen's absence, not realizing his fate is at the hands of Primus. October 31st, 1945. In the wake of the haunted dreams and rumors that Samantha may be roaming Griffin Station, Groff worries the MPD may be corrupting the facility. November 5th, 1945. The events of Dreisendracht. Recovering the Dempsey test subject from a rocket bound for the moon, Richtofen secures his soul and reveals to Primus his intention to set things right. Primus destroys Griffin Station and the moon. Prototon Fracture. April 12th, 1942. Overrun by the undead, the Rising Sun facility is lost. July 8th, 1942. Division 9 begins construction of the island facility. October 9th, 1942. With construction complete, Division 9 continues their projects at the island facility. November 5th, 1942. Takio is dispatched by the Emperor to oversee the work of Division 9 at the island facility. February 6th, 1943. Division 9 expands experimentation to include use of prisoners of war. Division 9 staff, arachnids, and mystical beasts. June 15th, 1943. Takio reports to the Emperor the work being done at the island facility is unacceptable. July 24th, 1943. On the orders of the Emperor, Takio is taken prisoner by Division 9. He's used as a test subject for their organic plant-based experiments. September 13th, 1945. Cornelius attempts to send a transmission to Peter McKee, telling him to rendezvous with an abandoned Rising Sun facility. October 1st of 1945. The events of Zetsu's Primus secured Takio's soul after they helped him commit target seppuku. Richthofen takes the crew to Dimension 63 for the insurance policy. They return to the island before traveling to their next destination. October 18th, 1945. Peter McCain makes his jump into Shino Numa as a temporal rift opens below him as a result of Primus' universal fractures. The rift teleports him to Garad Krogan, the Agoni fracture. On November 11th of 1942, Roth confirms that Division 9 has completed the resurrection of the ancient beasts for the battle on the Eastern Front. Reports suggest that the specimens are still extremely dangerous, but the German stalemate on the Eastern Front with the Russians will soon come to an end thanks to their involvement. On January 3rd of 1943, the Russians used stolen Group 935 research to create the Russian Giant, the Russian Mangler, and the Ray Gun Mark III. On February 2nd of 1943, the Battle of Stalingrad doesn't end. Thanks to the technological advancements on both sides, World War II continues indefinitely. On February 13th of 1943, working with Maxis at the Kino facility, Sophia reveals that she was attacked by Subject 2-6. On February 14th of 1943, having learned Sophia was attacked by Subject 2-6, Maxis kills her and transfers her brain into a machine, the Strategic Operation Planning Heuristic Intelligence Analyzer, also known as Sophia. July 7th of 1943, Sophia is transferred to Stalingrad to oversee Group 935's operations. Then on September 2nd of 1943, Argentina reports the Dragons have proven beneficial to the war effort at Stalingrad. He confirms that Guide Block research continues to explore the and movement across dimensions. On November 6th of 1943, Sophia confirms the existence of Project Rasputin, the Russian Mangler soldier. Then on January 11th of 1944, Sophia confirms the Russian Gigant robot has set back the German advance. Then on April 14th of 1945, Sophia declares the Battle of Stalingrad is nearing victory for German forces and that Valkyrie drones have been deployed to locate any resistance trains and attempt capture. After the release of large concentrations of Element 115 by German forces, the city becomes largely populated by the undead. Nikolai and his comrades continue to fight for what remains of Stalingrad. September 2nd of 1945, World War II still rages on. Stalingrad has turned into a three-way conflict between Dragon, Machine, and the undead. Without any remaining human survivors, Sophia is now trapped in the city. On November 6th of 1945, drifting through space and time in his ethereal form, Gersh arrives in the Fracture. November 6th, 1945, the events of Garad Krovi. Primus arrives and frees Sophia and acquires Nikolai's soul. Richthofen teleports the soul, and Richthofen teleports the souls of Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai to Maxis at the house. Monty announces his existence to Primus for the first time. Then on April 25th of 1956, while traveling to Shangri-La, Brock and Gary's plane crashes in the mountains as a result of a freak atmospheric event, another side effect of the temporal rifts created by Primus while traveling to Garad Krovi. On November 6th of 1963, hiding in a closet at the Pentagon, McNamara records a message confirming that John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon, and Fidel Castro have died as a result of a zombie outbreak. He dies moments later. And then following this, we just have the character sketches, which you guys should know just about everything about these characters by now. But there you guys have it. There are all of the unknown secrets and little details that they hadn't told us that we were wondering all throughout the release of all of these individual maps and DLCs, and just creating new information as time went on over the course of all of those games: Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, and Black Ops 3, in combination with the first video that I made on this. That is the entire filled-in story arc. Now, of course, some of the smaller details may not be included in this because it's assumed that you know all of this stuff. So if you're not in some way involved in zombies or have played all the different maps, then you may not get some of the references. But even for those who have like a basic understanding of each of the maps, you guys should have learned a lot of different stuff. So there you guys have it. These types of videos take a tremendous amount of time to create. So if you could just leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, that's all that I ask for this amazing type of content. That's literally all that I ask. It takes you a second, and it takes me days and days and days to make these types of things. So that's about it for the video. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you all learned and you enjoyed the zombie storyline. I absolutely thought the storyline was well executed, and it was a little bit tangled. There were parts where things got a little bit tangled, but they made up for it. They definitely made up for it by filling us in on what exactly actually happened, or they've created some sensical way of explaining everything in some way, shape, or form. There are a few things here and there where you can see they kind of hit walls, and they're just like, how do we wrap this up? And the reasoning may be very vague, and the reason for that is, well, because they kind of wrote themselves into a wall because they wanted to have as much detail as possible, because introducing new storylines also can sometimes conflict with the old ones. So that's part of the challenge of being a writer. But for what it is, a storyline made for the fans, by the fans, I think this is definitely an incredible work of art. And a huge thank you goes out to Treyarch for making such an awesome experience. Seriously, guys. Something that started out as nothing more than a tower defense game like Bloons Tower Defense or Fanta Tower Defense. You ever play that on the Weeble stuff? Literally, that was zombies. So it's crazy to see what it's grown into over these past years. And yeah, so if you missed part 1, I will have that link in the description, as well as, like I said, CoD WaW 2, all of the lore that we have so far for the prologue. And I'm really looking forward to the new game. Activision has given me the honor of playing the game a couple days early, so I'm gonna have a bunch of different guides for you guys up. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And as always, stay.
Damn, son, where'd you find this? Someone else, freak bag! Here they come! We gotta move!
We're Rhett and Link. We wanted to show you how we created our amazing new website. Now, we know that having a great website is crucial because when we look good online, our brand just feels good. Check out all
Taking you all down! Shock and awe!
It's all drag and drop. You can change anything.
Boom! What's up, everybody? So